It's the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. All right, here it is. The most intense week of the year. Not just the most intense week of October of 2024, but the literal most intense week of the year. And everybody's going to be feeling it in one kind of way or another. And this episode is dedicated to getting you through it. Yeah. We got the election stuff. And yeah. I'm going to talk about Trump. Going to talk about Biden. That's sandwiched in there. But what I'm here to do this week is to really help you understand how you can navigate and surf through these cosmic riptides. Because this week we're in forced deconstruction. Let's put it this way. And you can't blame yourself for it. Okay. So if stuff isn't working, you're not a failure. Get off that subject. It's not helpful. Okay. So I'm here to give you a stern talking to as your astro mom, and also to thank our patrons for keeping us going. We all get through it. Okay. It doesn't need to be comparative to who's having the worst week. I can guarantee you there is not a person on the planet who is not feeling it this week. Okay. There's going to be some things that are really big, very historic events that happen. We're going to see some historic weather around the world, not just the United States. It's just, there's going to be a lot of stuff. And at the same time, on a personal level, you can level up and power up. And that's what we're here to do. I'm going to end the podcast this week, just like I have all throughout the month, giving you words to inspire and help you grow. I start the podcast with that. I end the podcast with that. And in fact, I'm reading an article from the September issue of the Awake Space Astrology magazine, called The Work, and I read a bit of the article on how to identify and manage through resistance patterns, because I thought of every week, any week, I should say, of this month, or of any month, you could use some help. It would be this one. Okay, so, and then I've got a special discount code for you. If you want to go grab that issue or any other back issue of the magazine up in the shop. I think we've got them from April through October in the shop. That's when I started uploading them there. So, anywho, my friends, it's a chock-a-block episode. I'm going to remind you, Trump will not be president. I stand on my prediction. I don't care what other people are predicting. I do not. One, I can tell from a lot of the predictions out there that if they're claiming they're astrologers, they are reading the astrology wrong, because there are right ways and wrong ways to do it. It's not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of fact. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a little tired. I'm a little grouchy, and I got hit by a bunch of trolls who lean towards noodle brain level spiritual psychosis and believe, that Trump is the second coming. And I question anybody's morality at that point, if that's what they view as a moral victor. But, what times we live in. Anyway, I will remind you, Trump will not be president. He won't lead anything again. And the consequences are on the way. You may not even see all of them. Okay. But this episode is mostly helping you, because that's who I'm here for. I'm here for you. I give the political predictions, one, to set people at ease, but also to prove my accuracy. But at the end of the day, my cosmic job is to help you live your life more fully, more richly, and more authentically, as the very best version of you that you can be in any given moment. And the more tools I can give you, the more knowledge I can help you apply. Notice I didn't say give you knowledge, but to apply the knowledge, give you routes to take that knowledge. Because knowledge is not power unless you know how to use it. That's my job, is to help empower you. Because if we're going to change this damn world, it isn't about elections and it isn't about picking a team. It's about learning how to live and live abundantly from an authentic space. And that's not about getting the fast cars or the hotsy-totsy arm candy or buying all the designer labels or getting the special pure organic superfood of the month. It's from really knowing who you are and how valuable you are and that you matter. You get that figured out, and that's how you change the world. Because, yeah, just one of you, it's a little drop in the ocean. But funny how that drop will inspire other drops. And once those drops start to grow together, they form a wave. And when they form a wave, they make a difference. That's what I'm here to do for you. So I hope you enjoy the episode. It's not going to be the best edited episode because it is now after 5 a.m. and I need to take a nap because I have another interview with a journalist. I'll let you know about it once it's out. It's not with a small publication. It's with something, another hoity-toity one akin to The Economist. I know. Getting excited about this. So I'm here for you and to help you know your value. Anybody trying to take your power, inspire fear, or make you want to follow someone and belong to a cult, well, we have to use our discernment now, don't we? Anyway, let's get going. Let's find out why fear is the last place you want to live in this week. Well, hello, love bugs. It is the most intense week of the year. I've been warning you about it for a long time now, and here we are. So if you're feeling out of sorts, if you're feeling teary, if you're feeling overwhelmed, whatever you're feeling, anxiety, etc., yep, you are not alone. The whole world is feeling it, not just the United States. I'm going to remind you right up front, Donald Trump will never be president again. Honestly, I made that prediction before we ever got close to the election. It is based on his astrology, and I still hold to that. The timelines haven't fucking changed. I want to use headphones for this episode. So, in this episode, we're going to do all the patron shout outs. We're going to talk about what's in the headlines. And of course, I'm going to leave you with some strategies on how to deal with the energy. And I'm going to start here with some strategies for dealing with the energy. So we have Mars, now less than 2 degrees in separation from being opposed to Pluto at the 29th degree. This is historic. I have looked back as far as I can look back, and I have not found such a time in the last 300 years. We've had Pluto conjunct and Mars conjunct Pluto, mostly at the early degrees, but not at the final degrees. I know, it's a little wild. This is a massive turning point in human history. This will be, hopefully, a time people study. I don't know. I got some very disappointing news this week that many U.S. colleges and universities are now saying that U.S. history is no longer required to graduate. Oh, my friends. That is a dangerous thing. Getting rid of humanities, getting rid of history, diminishing art, and just, keeping it to business and economics. Economics is less accurate often, not always, than political science, than astrology. So it's very, very important to use our minds. It's very important to understand history. It's not just because we're doomed to repeat it. It does rhyme. Take a look at the Trump rally. First of all, the Madison Square Garden thing, big deal. 19,000 some odd hundred people. Probably many going to see the shit show that it was. Mirroring the Nazi rally held there in the 30s. It couldn't be more clear. We're rhyming. Especially with Elon showing up like a character from Starship Troopers. That was no accident. If you don't know the movie, go look it up. It's a B film that's awful, but deals with fascism. It couldn't be clearer. And if you're in the United States and you can vote, then vote. That's what you can do. You can do nothing else. So sitting there debating, whining, keyboard mashing, none of that's going to help you this week. If you can vote, go vote. That's what you can do. And then keep track of your vote. Make sure your vote is counted. Okay? There's lots of ways to do that. Look it up for your county. And you're all about to find out after November 5th why I've been saying get involved in your local politics, because that's where there's going to be disruption. There's going to be counties that are, trying not to say ballots are okay and blah, blah, blah. There's going to be drama around it. Okay? It'll all work out. It'll all work out. Now, I talked about time last week, but I'm going to talk about it again because, my God. So, first of all, things aren't predestined, but we have possibility, which is wide open, and then we have probability. And when we're looking at collective matters, we can see what is most likely to happen. That's any kind of analysis. Any kind. And astrology is a form of data science. Okay, so we know each symbol represents many different things. As an astrologer who does predictive astrology, I know the parameters of each symbol. It's my job to go down which way is most likely. Okay, now I do that not just by tapping into my guidance, which I do use. Okay, but also as a political analyst, understanding how systems work, then I apply that too. And then my knowledge, of course, as a natal astrologer, understanding how health can be impacted, work can be impacted, reputation, all of that, all those factors. It's like a lot of moving parts. So in the case of Trump, his own personal astrology shows he will not lead anything again. That's separate from the election. The election chart, the close of polls showed me the party in power retained power, period. Okay. Don't ask me one more time about one of your state races. Not even you, Texas, because I don't have birth times for most of those people, and I do not have time or the energy to look. Okay, I'm tired. I have given my predictions as a courtesy. I do not even like giving election predictions because my worry is if people feel too confident, they don't show up. And if they get too scared, they get paralyzed and they don't take fucking action. But I can tell you, if I thought Trump was going to win, I would have been warning you for 2 years of what to do and how to fight it. Okay? Because I am a consulting astrologer. I'm going to tell you how to work with the energy. And the original chart that I looked at for the election, I didn't see a singular candidate. I saw a party. Okay. Which is what I saw in 2016. I saw a populist would win. When Bernie didn't get the nomination, it became pretty obvious there was one other option, and Hillary had very stressful transits. Okay. I just didn't see her winning. Now, Kamala's transits are stressful in this moment. I think she's writing it pretty well. She's using it as a power-up because she's actually very conscious as a human being. I'm not saying I agree with all of her policies. I'm not saying that I'm cool with where she's at in various philosophies. I'm saying she's conscious. which is why I think you're going to see vastly different policies in 2024. And 2025. And if you are a patron, you can go watch that 44-minute presentation. It's the pinned post. And I talk about what I see her doing in 2025 as president. And it probably won't be everything everybody wants, but it's going to move us forward diplomatically in a way we haven't seen before. And it's going to be more of an adherence to international law. As a lawyer, she's going to draw on that. And I think we'll see some very interesting times. It's a very, very, very volatile year, 2025. Very, very volatile. Lots of global conflict. It exacerbates. And that would happen no matter who is president. Okay? These wheels are already in play. Or the balls are already in play. The wheels are already in motion. Okay? So, historically, this week is a big week. I'm putting together a presentation for patrons talking about Mars and Pluto at the 29th degree and what that's going to look like in that late October, early November period that we're just now walking into. On a personal level, this can be a real power up, but everybody's going to be feeling it. Everybody's going to be more raw, more touchy, more emotional, even if you've been a metaphysician most of your life, meaning even if you've been an energy worker, even if you've done the work, whatever the work is. It's a lot. It's a lot right now because we are deconstructing. If stuff isn't working, stop pushing at it. Let it go. Let it go. Whether you're trying to build a website and the tech is fritzing out or your internet isn't working, stop trying to, you can only restart your computer how many times? If it's not working, get up, go do something else. Go do something physical. Go take a nap. Go make some brownies. By the way, my cherry chocolate brownies turned out extremely well. Very, very well. And they are now going to be in the Astro Mom's Winter Holiday Cookbook that comes out in December as my gift to my patrons. With my mom's Christmas cookie recipe and my kids' favorite, which is meringue kisses. And it's backed by popular request. But I tell you, those cherry chocolate brownies were really freaking good. And low sugar, kind of. Low granulated sugar, let's put it that way. But really tasty and made with almond flour. But anywho, it's a wild week. It's a wild week. And you will all understand why I did not do readings by the end of it. It's like, this is hitting me personally. But if we go back to that July 21st full moon, it is giving us the sneak preview of what happens at the end of the week. Okay. And we had Joe Biden step down as candidate. Now, that does it mean he's going to step down as president? Well, he might be forced to, but I think we're going to get some other potential good news. It's not the best timing for Trump at all. It does not do him well. It hurts him financially, actually. Hurts him right in the kidneys as well. So I think we'll have some big news about some kind of financial deal. It could be a blackmail. It could be a financial arrangement of some kind. Will be announced probably around the 30th for him. We all have the ability to let go of the things that hold us back this week. to allow this battering ram-like energy to blow open the blocks, open the floodgates of our own power. And if you have felt defeated because of the fascists, if you have felt powerless to make change in the world, they have won. They have won. I've told you, you want to think more French resistance than French Revolution. For a long time. Everybody wants to take to the streets with the pitchforks. They, the powers that bees, they understand how to deal with pitchforks. They bring out and use excessive force. The reason why the French resistance was successful is it was sneaky beans. It was, messages and pie plates and quiet, not seeking attention, but just going about your business and making things work. Show up to vote. If you're in a red state and you're afraid people are going to know you're voting blue, and do your homework, because not every blue candidate is going to be on your side. Some are going to try to flip, especially House seats. Okay. So House seats, make sure you know, because I know Georgia had a problem with that. Some mega person ran as a Democrat and won in the primary, pushing out the actual Democrat candidate. So do your research. That's why I always say don't vote party ticket blindly. Be an educated voter. Okay? VoteSaveAmerica.com. Won't walk you through stuff. Doesn't tell you how to vote. Just gives you information. Okay? So you can be educated. That includes ballot measures. That includes constitutional amendments. Nebraska looking at you. Okay, you got to understand these things. Do your homework ahead of time. You can't allow yourself to be robbed of your own power. Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one can take your power without your permission. She wasn't wrong. I don't know why I was so lucky as a child when I was going through horrendous mind-bending abuse. But my abusers tried to convince me they could read my mind. And so, being the cheeky little bugger I was, I thought all kinds of things that would have got me in big trouble, and they didn't know. I was maybe 7 or 8. And I thought, they can't read my mind. Well, then I'll just be there. I will just be up in my mind. And that's where I kept myself safe. That's why I lived in the library. That's why I lived in books. That's why my best friends were book characters. And I got the taste for adventure, because adventure stories were all that and some. And I realized, as much as I had to comply to things I really shouldn't have ever had to comply to, that I knew weren't my fault. No one could make me think any differently. They couldn't force me inside of my own head to think differently. And that's how I learned to hold my consciousness steady. So, a spiritual teacher of mine called that the divine betrayal, where the people that you're supposed to have your back don't have it, but it gives you the skills. That's how I got my skills. By holding my consciousness steady, because that's how I retained my power. I didn't always know it was my power. I wasn't conscious of that, but I knew they couldn't get in my head. And they couldn't make me change what I thought or was important to me at the time. And sometimes made me very contrary. I would take it a little too far. as we do that, do not let fear run your life this week, because the consequences are dire. It's serious. Do your breathing exercises. Get up, take a walk. Turn off the fucking social media. Or watch funny videos. Listen to good music. This is not the time to wring your hands. It is the time to do what you can do. And if you live in another country, do what you can in your own. Do what you can in your own. And there's always helping a neighbor. Checking in on people. Getting to know people. That's the most subversive thing I can think of right now. Getting to know people. Seeing other people as human. Instead of seeing people as this side or that side, this right side, this wrong side. Treating life like it's a fucking sports ball game instead of we are born and we die. All of us die. Thank God I have a podcast because I can't say this shit on social media because people are so traumatized by it. It is an inevitability. Sometimes we die young. Sometimes we die old. Sometimes we die middle-aged. We all die. We are born and we die. We are born and we die. What we do in the middle is called living. There was a young man who worked at Yellowstone National Park, and he'd been in the news. He went missing. He went hiking, 22 years old, just a baby. And when you have big hikes, and you're mountain climbing, often there's stations on the path where there'll be a book where people can write down who they are and what they were doing. And he obviously had gotten stuck there. And he wrote a long note, and his father had it published because they had to give up the search, and it is assumed the young man is not alive. This happened in October this month. But if you read that note, he was exhilarated. It was the best time of his life. Yes, it was a tragedy. He died. Because he was young, he was full of zest. Now we're assuming, we don't know for sure, but probably. Yellowstone's pretty rough territory. But imagine having been exhilarated when most people never, ever have the guts to step out of their comfort zone. And I'm not telling people to go mountain climbing or do dangerous things, but he was obviously doing something that made him feel alive. That's what we're here for. We are not here to cower. We are not here to exist on a couch watching somebody else have an adventure. We're not existing. We're here to live. That's what life is. It's living, and living is sometimes scary. Living can be exhilarating. Living can be sorrow-filled. And it can be filled with awe and inspiration and joy. But by God, if you let fear rob you of your life, you aren't living. There are many ways to continue being involved as we go forward. Deconstruct the patriarchy inside of you. Deconstruct misogyny inside of you. I'm too small. I'm too little. My voice, nobody cares. Nobody listens to me. You know what? Nobody listened to me for years and years and years and years. I warned about 2020 from about 1997 on. 96, 97. I was shown the charts. And the minute I started understanding it, I was telling people, man, in 20 years, there's this big thing coming. It's massive systemic change. You'd better be resilient. You'd better understand that the job you have today may not be there and it can go away in an instant. You better be resilient. Better lean into your skills and your interests. You may have to start a business. You better know how the internet works. You better know how to garden. You better, all these things I've been preaching. I've been preaching for a long time. You know what? I was telling people I cared about. And they'd be like, you're crazy. Oh my God, such a conspiracy theorist. You want me to be a prepper? I warned people about the political climate when George Bush won. I said, oh shit, here it comes. And Clinton before that, because Clinton worried me. Because we tried to get bodily autonomy at that time, and we were told America wasn't ready. America wasn't ready for gay marriage. America wasn't ready for bodily autonomy. I thought, you know what? I've never been ready for half the things that have happened in my life. You get used to it. But people weren't willing to advocate for the least of us. That's why do not buy the propaganda videos that said, we thought it was safe. We thought an abortion would never be in question. No, we did know. We warned. Activists warned. We warned and we warned. We said a precedent wasn't enough because precedents get overturned. We needed it codified. But America wasn't ready. Then George Bush came in and oh my God, things got batshit crazy. I know he looks lucid compared to Trump, but he is why we have Trump. And yes, the genocide in Palestine is horrendous. It's horrendous. We killed 1 million people in Iraq. 1 million civilians. Children, women. We lowered the life expectancy in that country exponentially. But we had the media embedded with our troops, and people did not get to see it and humanize the people and being impacted. Okay? I'm not comparing. I'm not saying one is worse than the other. I'm saying you are paying attention to one now because you can. And George Bush got that ball rolling. In part because of Netanyahu. Because he helped deliver the lies on WMDs. And if you want third party, if you want to change those types of policies, and I know so many of you do, and I do too, you have to start changing things at the county and state level. And then build it up. It is a 10-year process. It is not overnight. It is not a singular election cycle. And to think it could be is beyond naive. Beyond naive. It just shows a lack of understanding of how the actual cogs and wheels of a system actually operate. Idealism is inspiring, but pragmatism gets things done. Okay? I know, I'm on my high horse. I'm a preaching. You gotta let go of your fear. You gotta let go of your insecurities. You've gotta stop leaning with getting a brownie button or some badge or some label about why your life is bad, trying to get people to understand why you're not where you think you need to be. And turn your attention to how you'd rather feel. I'm not saying be toxically positive, but do you really like being afraid like that? It doesn't feel good. If you never leave your house, how will you ever meet anyone? And I'm not talking about lovers. I'm talking about friends. If you never take an art class and you're not a self-motivated learner, how are you ever going to learn how to paint or make a dish or a cup or learn how to do silkscreen painting. If you haven't studied or learned or watched a YouTube video even, how are you going to know? How are you going to know if you've never studied it? Never tried. To quote Annie Lennox's song, Cold, dying is easy, it's living that scares me. Cold, cold, cold. We got to live this week. We've got to let go of the shackles that we have allowed to remain attached to us. And by the way, we're going to have explosive events on a large scale, big world events, big weather events, big political events, and then internal events. Focus on you. Focus on you. Focus on what you need to deconstruct in you. Are you more willing to listen to a man than a woman if they're equal in their fields? If you're a man, why do you feel giving unsolicited advice is a good thing? And I'm not saying you do, but if you do happen to do that, catch yourself. Before giving unsolicited advice to a woman or a person of color, you might ask an open-ended question and say, well, what have you tried? Because, giving unsolicited advice is assuming responsibility for somebody else's experience. That could go for women as well. I'm just trying to help. Yeah, well, you can help people by asking open-ended questions, which are ones that give you more than a yes or a no answer. Give them to yourself. What have you tried? What can I try? What else could I do? If this didn't work, what else can? Well, if that route is closed, what other direction can I go? What would be interesting right now? Not what's going to make me money, not what's going to do that. Get out of the problem and be like, in this moment, what feels better? Well, it might be eating a bowl of ice cream. It might be going and taking a walk and taking pictures of pretty flowers. It might be watching cat videos. It might be giving a cuddle to your hedgehog. Or kissing your parakeet. Or giving a friend a call. Or looking up volunteer opportunities. Because the minute you let go of the fear and the insecurity and the worry and the doubt, this week especially, the road will open and it'll be like a poof. So if something goes away, have your moment, especially if it's a disappointment. You can have a good cry and then remind yourself, oh, well, I wonder what is coming that's better. Because something more secure is on the way. But you can't tell yourself these stupid stories about how your life is always bad and see the opportunity. You are literally closing every single window and every single door when you do it. It's not toxically positive to be open to possibility. That's where you make the biggest changes in life. So, I'll remind you, Donald Trump will not be president. He will not be. He does not have the transits. And I did J.D. Vance's chart last week, so you can go listen to that. And talked about Musk, too, before NASA asked for an investigation. And I think maybe one of the things I see with Musk is he might fuck around with Starlink connections. He might be threatening to turn things off. So we'll see what happens. He's looking pretty full of himself right now. So, okay. All right. So I think it is time for talking about the headlines. First, we'll do some patron shout outs because without patrons, we don't have a podcast, and we're going to have to split it into 2 again. That's exciting, isn't it? And then we'll read what's in the headlines, which is from the October Awake Space Astrology magazine. And I'll put a code in the show notes that if you guys want to pick up some back issues, if you're not already magazine subscribers in the Patreon for whatever reason, I'll put a discount code so you can go grab a back issue. If there's some articles that interest you, you can check those out in the Awake Space Astrology Podcast store. So I'll link it all up in the show notes with a little discount, and you can pick up some back issues for a good deal. But first, patron shoutouts. All right, you heard the music, and without patrons, there is no podcast. So I always give a shout out to our newest patrons, and you can always thank a patron in the comments. I'll read some comments at the end of this. All right, big thanks to Veronica, Honey, Billy, Rebecca, Gabriella, Blue, Victoria, Lisa, Demita, Gemma, Aaron, Little Bean, Marcel, Chelsea, Sam, Lauren, Angie, Jean Nicole, Danielle, Liz, Riavega. If I got that wrong, or Riavega, let me know how to pronounce your name if I got it wrong. Issy, Megan B, Michaela, Corey, Aurelia, Brianna, Kirsten, Hope, Zoe, Bella's Glory LLC, Allie, Kat D, Carol, Rob, Pam, Angel, Jennifer, Cheryl, Heather, Eric, Joanna, Laura Lee, Sandra, Sunflower, Liz So, Chaney, Naomi, Melissa, Mary, Shannon, Stephanie, Migrating Coconut, Sonia, Jordan, Thea, Chicken and a Cow, Tanya, Linda, Kath, Laura, Grace, Melissa, Jana, Thomas, Jessica, Caitlin, Lorena, Juliana, Janie, Alexis, Cindy, Aya, Harper, Auntie Dawn, Danny from Hell. I love that. Oh no, I lost my place. Diana, Keely, Pico, Sheila, Madeline, Rachel, It's B, Karen JC, Caitlin, Nikki, Diana, Rachel, Jess, Angela, Cody, Nancy, Andrea, Emma, Heather, Irene, XOXO, Coco. And I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to read to you guys some of the comments that we've gotten on the podcast. Sweet 75 CA, new patron, says, I don't think I realized how much I needed this very podcast episode. This is talking about last week. I needed this. I have been following for a while through here and Patreon, and just joined the Patreon group recently. It was a nice surprise to hear the shout out. I'll be revisiting the last few chapters of this particular podcast as I'm already feeling the stuff. I have a lot to learn, and I'm glad I found your program. Thank you, Laurie. Oh, I'm so glad. Shannon says, I couldn't find the new episodes on YouTube, so now I am on Spotify. Okay, Shannon. So I figured out what happened. So for some reason, the default setting was private. I actually just found the toggle button because my friend Susie fixed it all manually for me. But I found in the settings. So all new episodes should go up on YouTube now. So if you guys want to listen on YouTube, that's cool too. So thank you for letting me know, because I tried. But it's fixed. I got it fixed. Nair, your predictions are like a checklist. Thank you, patrons from SMAR2. Jessica, high profile case with a female abuser or female presenting. The Sarah Boone case kicked off this week. I had no idea about that, so I have to go look that up. Jenny Christine, I have listened to the end of this 2 or 3 times because there's so much to take away from it. So much learning this month between the podcast, the magazine, and the weekly coaching. You are the best, Astro Mom. Oh, Jenny Christine, big hugs to you and the littles. Oh, and a very, very special shout out to our little astrologer, Charlotte, who just had a birthday. Charlotte, Miss Charlotte, happiest of birthdays. I hope you had a very, very good time. All right. Let's talk about what's up in the headlines. And then I'm actually going to read to you an article from the September magazine on resistance and identifying resistance patterns. I think this is very, very important information. There's a reason I've been writing these articles. They've been here to help you. And if you are an Awake Space Astrology magazine subscriber, remember I read your articles to you every single month. So you've got your audio of all the articles. But here on the podcast, I'm going to read about resistance, how to identify it, and what to do about it, because that will be up on deck. But we'll do that up after we do the headlines and another round of patron shoutouts. Oh boy, I told you this week there's a lot going on. Now, this is the week where I think we could see that weather forming off the East Coast. Again, I'm not a meteorologist, guys. I'm just saying I see a hell of a lot of water. And I saw it in clients' charts in Long Island, in New York, and New Jersey for the end of October and early November. So keep your eyes out. Let's see. We're going to have the moon move into Libra on the 28th. In the moon in Libra coming into on the 28th. But first it'll be in Virgo. So October 26th through the 28th. I read this out last week, but we'll give you a refresher. I think we could see a healthcare crisis. This is anywhere globally. Issues with pharmaceuticals. We might see a recall on pharmaceuticals, but it could also still be the plasma issue, so that's highlighted. We could see big storms cause large amounts of damage on the ground, erosion events. This is global. Okay, so I know all of you people on the East Coast are worried, but, take a look at the Philippines right now in Quezon City, that kind of thing. So Southeast Asia, keep your eyes open. Issues with international trade and finance. This may have something to do with BRICS. Issue with cruise ship or ships, issues with communicable diseases, epidemics, pandemics, and viruses, bacteria, some more listeria, more food recall stuff. Could have to do with regulations as well and calls for regulation. We could see biological and or chemical weapons used and or discovered having been used. This is in Eastern Europe, India, Pakistan border, Israel, Palestine, Lebanon. Will anything be done about it? Probably not right now. We could see a missile, drone, or rocket launch go wrong. Potential accidents involving faulty infrastructure. This is like bridges, freeways, and ports and docks. We could see issues with supply chain, with trucking vehicles and trains. We already saw a 50-car pileup on I-5 in this Kent area in Washington State. That would have been something like that. Security issues for Kamala Harris and or her family. This could be her in-laws. Offshore earthquakes over a 6.0. On land, we could see up to a 6.5 in any seismic region. I'm kind of looking at Central America for that. Not Central United States, Central America. Geography, my friends. Issues with the U.S.-Mexico border, not just politicians talking. We could hear about a shootout or some kind of tragedy on the border. Argentina may be in the news. We could see border crossings and issues with mountains and summits as well. This is global. Attacks on judges and civil servants globally. Immigration and customs matters globally. Rules, policies, and procedures under the microscope are breached without consequence, which, by the way, on the immigration and customs matters, Candace Owens having her visa revoked from Australia would have fit into that. That's kind of funny. Assassination attempts, global. Issues with voting registration, lawsuits with voting, irregularities with voting systems, and that could include like election officials not wanting to do stuff or finding ballots, that were tampered with, things like that. Remember that the transits are global. Accidents and political upheaval can also be big storms or natural events and vice versa. The job of an astrologer is to translate the big energy we see happening in a chart, but those are the options. A big storm can look almost exactly like a terrorist attack because it has a similar impact. Okay. So October 28th through the 30th, when the moon moves into Libra, nothing is going to be quite as it seems. And I think because we have Mercury in Scorpio, trine Neptune in Pisces, trine Mars in Cancer, I think we could see some very interesting misinformation techniques. I think we could see some sabotage happening. I think we could see information leaks happening, especially since Neptune is retrograde. That's always a great time to see. It's always a great time to see stuff revealed. So we may have some big whistleblowing. So we should see a historic event between the 28th and the 31st. This could be, and is most likely, a mass casualty event. It could be weather or warlike conditions. So either one is going to be historic, and that could be both at the same time. We could see just big stuff going on. This is global. Okay, this is global. We could see massive windstorms, hurricanes, and tropical storms with lightning and hail. Infrastructure damage is almost 100% assured between the 28th and the 31st. Not everywhere, obviously. It doesn't have to be where you live, but you might hear about a building having an issue or a bridge having an issue. It doesn't mean it's going to fall down, but it just might have to close a lane or something. Air traffic disruptions due to labor strikes and or contract negotiations, but that could also be like Boeing. Boeing might be back in the news because the Seattle workers are still on strike. Public protests increase, fighting on the ground, excessive use of force is in play. This is global. Satellites and communications disruption, internet failures, and or technical issues in general. Scandal in the fashion industry or a luxury brand is in the hot seat. Terrorist attack. This could be France, Germany, Italy, UK, possibly, or in the US. That doesn't mean you have to sit there and be afraid. Just keep your eyes open. Okay. Noted violence in urban centers. Okay. So this could be mass shootings. This could be stabbings. I'm really saying don't take the kids to the mall. Don't be in like crowded public venues. If you have little ones, keep it closer to home. Keep it close to home. Okay. If you're young and you like to go clubbing, be careful. Keep your eyes out. Okay. There's no crystal you can wear that's going to stop a bullet. Okay. That's just the way it is. You can hopefully give yourself more common sense wearing crystals that let you listen to your internal guidance. Increased aggression or expansion of conflict concerning Lebanon and Iran, Israel, and Palestine. Trump physically unwell. There's a big deal happening with Trump. So it's either his physical health. I do believe his financials are in trouble. There's going to be some information coming out about some kind of financial transaction that does him a great deal of damage over the next couple of days. Elon Musk under scrutiny or pressure. Kamala Harris, family, in-laws, stepkids under threat or more security. Supreme Court or other high court judges, global or international court in the news. And ICC or ICJ issue new rulings and or warrants, could be up on deck. Prosecutor makes a bold move, could be Jack Smith, could be also something in Georgia. I don't know, something's up. New information leaked about U.S. officials and or financial matters to do with an elected official. Public violence, mass shooting, stabbing, or an issue with domestic violence. Politicians start changing their tune. Rhetoric changes and propaganda spins in a different direction. That's on all sides. So just keep your ears tuned to what the messaging is going to continue to be. Issues with international organizations, Commonwealth, etc. This could include the G6. This could include, the United Nations. This could include BRICS. There's going to be stuff coming out. Air traffic disruptions, limited airspace. So there's some type of airspace might get shut down, maybe in the Middle East somewhere. That would be my most likely guess, but it could be in Asia. Who knows? It could be, it's global, possible. In the realm of possibility, global conflict escalates, could see large international incident on the 30th or 31st. And this is definitely going to signal that there is some kind of interference in the U.S. elections by foreign countries, because there is and has been. All right, October 31st through November 2nd, the moon in Scorpio is intense. There are issues that are surfacing that disturb the strongest of nerves. So on November 3rd, Mars will leave Cancer and enter Leo. So between October 31st and November 3rd, it is the most stressful point in 2024. This is where all hell breaks loose. This is just like the shit show is listeria filled. It is the dysentery of 2024. And I'm not just talking about poop, but we probably will see a lot of poop in the headlines, or bacteria that causes it. But anyway, historic events continue. Natural event or terrorist attack that is difficult to control or contain. Huge storm, big rain, snow, ice melt, issues with flooding, and huge waves. This is globally. That's you too, Australia and New Zealand. When I say global, I mean everybody. Border sea violence. That could be Poland, Belarus, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, India, Pakistan, U.S., and Mexico. Violence escalates in Venezuela and Guatemala. Sizable earthquake over 6.0. That's anywhere in the world. We could just see bigger earthquakes. Doesn't mean it's where you live. Okay. Keep your eye out. Keep your go bags. You need to anyway. Internet disruptions, payment gateway failures, hacking and ransomware, graveyards, cemeteries, catacombs, mortuaries are up in the headlines. Waterborne and foodborne illnesses really take up space in the headlines. Toxic waste, sewage, sewers, water quality at stake, poisoned groundwater. We could see the death of a prominent person, a leader, or a celebrity. Cold case reopened. Issues with oil refineries and gas pipelines, platforms, oil production, or pumping. So things to do with anything with oil and gas. That could also be gas stations, etc. So maritime accidents, attacks, piracy, insurgents by sea. Issues in Persian Gulf, Red Sea, Straits of Hormuz, and Suez Canal, Mediterranean expansion of conflict. Biden and or Putin could face serious health crisis or political challenge. Assassination attempts of world leaders, political candidates, and people of note. Big information leaks revealed or serious espionage allegations. Mass accident, loss of life, or terrorist attack, accident at theme park, or crush at a sporting event. And it could be all of that. So it's not just that or it could be that and. Food poisoning or illness. So that would be, salmonella, listeria, etc. Dam failure, flooding on river or lakes, bridge and levee failures due to weather and or seismic activity, hacking or ransomware issues. That's probably really big up. We could see incidents with crypto as well. So that's what's up in the headlines. Don't give me, is there any good news? I told you Elon was going to be investigated this month. I did, didn't I? Okay, there was your good news. Damn it. Don't make me be spicy. Yeah, I think it's time for some patron shout-outs again. We'll do some patron shout-outs, and then we will talk about resistance. Actually, I think I'm going to do that at the very end. I think we'll talk about the Mars-Pluto opposition right after the patron shout-outs. All right, more shout outs. We're going to shout out to Lonnie, Sarah, Juniper, Melissa, Katie, Angelica, Laura, Rebecca, Jay, Justin, Zuzi, Chris, Josephine, Cindy, Christine, Clementine, Kay, Eleanor, Andrea, Kia, Lynn, Katharina, Lolo, Michelle, Shannon, Jenny, Trisha, Hazel, Cicely, Beck, Emily, Megan, Shadow, Kelly, Jamie, Sherry, Anna, AFG, Bridget, Sarah, Tamika, Marigold, Laura, Shell, T, Ann, Nikia, Cheyenne, Felicia, Kelly, Kristen, Lori, LB, April, Hannah, Jenna, Ruby Rage, Jessica, Christina, Yasmin, Stephanie, and Angela, Jessa, Laura or Laura, Yasmin, Emma, Kristen, Witches and Britches, Marie, Shelley, Laura Beth, Tlixla. I'm not going to say that right. You're going to have to send me a PM so I do that correctly. Because I hate mispronouncing people's names. Sarah, Nita, Megan, Poppins, Shane, Tony, Jessica, Zoe, Gina, Pleasure O'Reilly, Kay, Shannon, Holly, Amanda, Leah, Andrea, your favorite trucker. Hi, Nate. Allie, Chantel, Sherry, Jen, Grant, Chelsea, Caleb, Camry, Chris, Jen, Ann, Cecile, Leah, Mariah, Lisa, GS Publishing, Katie, Diana, Kay, Melissa, Dre, Jess, Chappie, Jeannie Bean, Stephanie, Lori, Brandy, Kendall, Kerr, Haley, Alita, Ariel, Jordan, Mick or Mike, Cassie, Vicky, Bree, Teresa, Ann, Jeremiah, Becky, Starla, Wade, KMKF, Annika, Isis, Lauren, Lee, Cindy, Janae, Hannah, Christina, Mona, Vanessa, Katie, Catherine, Heather, Shelley, Megan, Lucy, Megan B, Ash, Iris, Abby, J9, Jillian, Amy, Tracy, Jeanette, Rachel, Bree, Andrea, Patricia, and Jenna. I'm going to leave that there so we can do the next round of shout outs. How cool is that? Thank you. Without you, there is no podcast. Thank you for supporting our work in the world. So exciting. So many new members. So exciting. And of course I lost my place, but we'll find it. We'll find it. We'll find it. I've been doing that the last couple episodes. Keep losing my spot and then I have to edit. Grrr. All right. Let's talk about that Mars-Pluto opposition and the astrology of this week. I went through this for patron only. So last week, but we'll talk about it a little bit more here on the public podcast. All right, let's talk about the Mars-Pluto opposition and why it's historic. And I'm making a presentation for patrons. We have never seen Mars at the 29th degree in opposition to Pluto at the 29th degree at the time it's getting ready to ingress to the next sign in finality, which makes this a very historic time. On the one hand, at the highest levels of this energy, we are smashing patriarchy. And that is why we have the first part of this podcast. You need to really self-examine. I cannot count the times in my life where I have been more qualified, more educated on a subject, and some guy basically regurgitates something I've said, and people will listen to him because he's male. In fact, way back when, maybe 20 years ago, I was part of a community organization, and I had a wonderful friend who was an older gentleman. He was in his 70s at the time. I was in my 30s. And we used to jokingly say, he was my boyfriend, even though he wasn't. But we would go to these meetings and be there together. And I would make a proposal. I would get talked over. Bill would turn around and basically say verbatim what I said. They'd all kiss his ass. And he would say, "That's great. That was Laurie's idea." Talk about a wonderful man. Okay. He passed away in 2018 and I'm very missed. But anyway, so many times in life, even as an astrologer, people say, well, this guy, or this person. And if you guys remember Larry was a character I created in 2022, mostly to respond to a troll. But I realized on the playback when I was editing the video, I was listening to me with a masculine voice. I used the voice changer and I had a filter on that widened my jaw. They got rid of that filter. It's really annoying because there's all these beauty ones, but you can't get a decent guy filter for anything. And so I created Larry, and I would say the same things the same way with the same snark that I actually use, and people would take it in a different way. And I didn't get mad at people for taking it in a different way because I listened to me differently. I thought, if I'm going to listen to me differently with a different voice, a masculine voice, and take myself a little more seriously, my God, what is the problem? And I've been deconstructing a lifetime. I mean, I started as a kid because my mom used to sign her name Mrs. my dad's name. She didn't use her name. And I'd be like, I remember at 9, I was watching my mom sign a check and she signed Mrs. Dad's name. And I was like, you don't have your own name? That's weird. And she was like, I am proud to be Mrs. Dad's name. And I was like, yeah, but you're you. Can you hear my first house, Mars? But you're you. Be you. And so a lot of, this is one of the reasons I don't like to do love readings. Because it's really not about love. It's about somebody afraid to be alone. I've had more than one client come for a career reading or a year ahead reading and go, am I meant to be alone? And I always bring people back to it. It's, what does it mean to be alone? What does it mean to not be partnered? What does it mean to not be in a couple? Because you know what the word couple actually means? It's from coupling, and coupling are shackles. You are attached by chains. That's what the word means. When trains couple, they get locked together And the seventh house isn't about love. It's about contracts and agreements and obligations. So that stupid Nebula app that's like, find your partner, that's all bullshit. That's not real astrology. It's preying off of people's socially programmed insecurities. And I say this as a Libra moon, okay? I say this as a Libra moon. I am a Libra moon. It took me a long time to be okay being on my own. It was the weirdest feeling to be single because I had been in a relationship for so long. Met my first husband when I was 18. No, we didn't get married that young, but we were together. I met my second husband when I was 30, and I left at 47. And I had never lived alone except for like 6 months, the first 6 months of college. I didn't know what to do with myself. I gave myself a year just to kind of get used to it. I mean, I tried to date a little bit, but it was weird. I was never good at dating. I just ended up in relationship, right? Very codependent. Learning to be sufficient unto yourself isn't about being an old dried up spinster. Doesn't mean you can't do better. Okay? It doesn't mean you can't enjoy other people and have fun. But the thing I noticed, and I'll go back to the dating analogies because I think it's so ubiquitous. I think so many people have this experience. If we're going to deconstruct misogyny, we have to deconstruct it within. And part of misogyny is a woman is only as valuable as the partner she is with. Right? I think that's one of the things I actually like about Doug Emhoff. He is perfectly okay with Kamala having the bigger public position. They are obviously a team. Whether we agree with policy, not policy, we're just looking at the relationship. And I think we need more positive male role models showing that I support this person. And she supports him. That's freaking obvious. But he had to make the career sacrifice. Not her. That's novel. That's kind of cool. Right? Cool for me, anyway. I'm like, damn, that's neat. That's really cool. Right? So I gave myself a break because dating wasn't working. Remember I said, like, think about this time because I was going through Pluto transit. I've gone through a lifetime of Pluto transits. So dating wasn't working. I've learned if things aren't working out, put it down. Doesn't mean, oh, I'm never going to do it again, or this is the wrong thing for me. I'll always be alone. That's really stinking thinking. That kind of thought process is why people end up bitter and lonely and just their life sucks, basically. It's attitude. Attitude is everything. Okay? So I gave myself a break and I was like, well, I guess it's time to do me. I've never done me. I've been a daughter. I've been a wife. I've been a mom. Of course, I'm an astrologer. Of course, I'm a political analyst. But nobody paid attention to those things. So I didn't get to like lock into my identity. Not that I'm identified with what I do, because honestly, I'm not. Astrology is part of who I am. However, I'm Laurie. Laurie, that's what I identify with, always. Yeah. But when I was 50, when I was feeling cute, because I was, not that I'm not cute now, I am, but I was a little less floofy. Doing all those readings for all you guys, I haven't exercised enough. That's changing. I got my daily walk in, so that's a pretty good thing. I love being somewhere walkable. But anyway, I decided to date, and I noticed on the first date that I went back to dating at 50, after a couple years break, that that first date, I recognized the pattern that one, I was a very good wife. Okay. And I made things easy for other people. I'm pleasant to be around. I make it easy to be around me. That's part of that survival instinct. And the gentleman was running late for dinner. And this was the first date. And so I didn't want to keep the kitchen late. So I texted him and said, well, what do you want to eat? Here's the menu. And I'll get it ordered. And by the time you get here, it should be pretty much close to the table. So, because I was already there, because it was close to my house, and he was coming from a distance. He wasn't being rude by being late. Traffic in Southern California is crazy. Nobody blames anybody for being late. And he got in just as dinner was being served. It was perfect timing. And he got gooey-eyed. And just my kind of woman. And I thought, shit. I don't want to partner up. I'm looking for somebody to have fun with. I didn't want a committed relationship. I didn't want to be taking care of somebody. I wanted somebody who would meet me in the middle, that would tend to my needs as much as I tended to theirs. Libra moon, mutuality. It's important, right? That's the 7th house. Mutuality, agreements, meeting your obligations, not having it out of balance, right? And so I noticed that pattern and I thought, oh, because I walked into this still looking for a partner because that's what I was trained to do. I wish I would have figured that one out a little bit earlier than 50, but I got it figured out. And he realized by the end of the date that there wasn't going to be another one. And he was a very nice man. There was nothing wrong with him. He just wanted a partner. And I did not. And we very amicably shook hands and moved on. And that night, I made a decision. And the decision was I was going to treat dating like networking. And I don't walk into a networking event looking for my next business partner. I don't walk in looking for the next great deal. I walk in, who's interesting? Who's interesting? I have very low expectations of most networking events. I'm not looking for a life partner. And I realized I needed to take that approach to dating. And I met some very interesting people. And instead of focusing on what was wrong with dating, why this person was weird, or why I didn't want to see them again, or why did I leave early, or whatever, I would write down everything that was good that I wanted to have more of. So sometimes it was, wow, I'm going back to that restaurant again. They had a really good whatever. I had a lot of fun on this date. I want to do something fun like that again. Or, I like the chemistry I had with that person. It's too bad other things weren't compatible. Often it was because they wanted a committed relationship and I didn't. Because I've done it, and, or maybe they had little kids and I did not want to be, stepmom. I've raised my children. I don't want to do it. Right. So, but I put my focus on what I did want more of. And I had a really fun time dating until all of a sudden my business was a lot more interesting to me, because what I noticed is people weren't bringing to the table what I could bring for myself, and not just financially, but just interest. And the minute I gave up dating, my boyfriend came back to me, which I had dumped him, but he showed up back in my life. And we've been together ever since. And we have a very good relationship that works for me. Very funny. Not demure, but very funny. So as we go, and so much so, we're not even anywhere near each other. We're over 1,000 miles apart. I don't worry about what he's up to. I don't sit and obsess. He doesn't worry about what I'm up to. We connect weekly. In fact, every day. We text, but it's not a hounding or what are you doing and blah, blah, blah. And it isn't because we're dumb and have ultimate trust. It's more like we're doing life and we'll meet up when we can because we both have things going on. There is a trust there, but it's not blind. You know what I'm saying? It's more like, meh, life happens. So that comes from a lot of deconstruction. That comes from a lot of introspection and being willing not to just say, oh, this guy was wrong. This guy was wrong. And I didn't like this one because he was a weirdo, or some more. But it came from me going, oh, because part of me feels very strange being on my own. Being on my own. Because somehow it makes me less valuable because somebody isn't attached to me. Right? Right. That's one of the biggest deconstructions we can do. Finding our value in and of ourselves as a sovereign being. I know that term gets used in the right-wing areas for the wrong reasons, but a sovereign being, you're in charge of your own life, your own hopes, your own dreams, your own desires. And how many times have we been so afraid to even want anything because of the fear of not being able to get it? Because we're too small, we're not resourced, everybody's against us. I've been there, and it held me back. What if it has nothing to do with gender? What if confidence is just a human thing? Like, what if you broke down all of the things you think have to do with gender, and you just went, reproductive organs are not required for this. Whether it's washing dishes, doing the gardening, doing the outside work. Like, my dad does the cooking and my mom does the yard work. Not that Dad doesn't have his little tractor. He does. It's very cute. But my mom's the one who does the yard work. She likes to physically work. My dad loves to cook and always has. If you grew up with a firefighter for a dad, 9 times out of 10, they're damn good cooks. So, you know, you've got to find what works for you. Like, people make such a big deal out of what clothing people wear. I couldn't wear pants to school until first grade because pants were for boys. Dresses were for girls. But if you look at traditional clothing in many cultures, depending on the climate, like in the Middle East, men wear thobes, women wear thobes, or jalabi. It depends on where you're at. I know Palestinians call it a thobe for a dress. In the Khalij, which is the Arabian Gulf, Persian Gulf area, they call it a thobe for men, jalabi for women. They're all dresses of some kind. They're robes. And trust me, when it's hot, you appreciate a thobe if you're gay. They're comfy. They're cool. They're made out of really good cotton. Great for hot weather. Keeps the air circulating. In Scotland, men wear kilts. My son used to call his kilt a man skirt. You know, just to mess with people. You know, it doesn't matter what people wear. It doesn't matter if people are wearing makeup, not wearing makeup. It's human. It's human. It's human. We need to stop with the patriarchy, and we get to stop it inside. You stop it inside you? You deconstruct it inside you? You blow open the doors for yourself. You open up a whole new world. And yeah, the world will still have opinions. There's still going to be people who don't like the way you look, who don't like what you have to say. Notice I'm getting hit by the maggots left, right, and center. In fact, they've resorted to making fun of my glasses again. Like, I'm in my 50s. Do you think it's the first time I've heard something about my glasses? If I was that insecure about my glasses, do you think I'd have them on camera? For fuck's sake, whatever. Just shows they can't argue anything else, and I'm hitting a nerve. Right? But there will always be some kind of opposition, some kind of obstacle, some kind of challenge. But at some point, you can get to a place where you're like, man, that's a great problem to have. I would have paid for this problem. Whenever I get super stressed out, I'll be like, I'll think back 10 years ago. How would I felt about me bitching about this problem? I would have been, oh, yeah, I would have made fun of myself. I've been like, that's your problem? Oh, no, that's horrible. Right? So it's a time to deconstruct, because this week is so historic. It's so historic. I was just talking to Matilda tonight, because we talk at night. My nighttime, her daytime, because she's in bed at 10 o'clock. She's a Taurus. She likes to sleep. But anyway, and I was saying, this energy, it's going to blow. It's going to blow. But I said it blows open doors if you know how to run with it. But it's going to be like blown open with a C4 charge, which C4 is like an explosive. So, kaboom. You can blow through your blocks, and it might be messy. But that's okay. It's okay. There's a mess. Life can be messy. You entered into life in a messy way. I don't know if you've ever seen a newborn baby before they get cleaned up. It's a mess. It's bloody and fluids and it's a mess. And yet it's one of the most joyful, for many, not all, joyful experiences if you're choosing to be a mother, right? If it's something you've wanted, it is one of the most beautiful experiences you can ever have. Right? That beautiful mess. And life is full of beautiful messes. I want you to remember that this week, because it is historic. It's a beautiful mess, whatever happens. So, historically, we have never had a time like this, especially in living memory. And I was trained to not apply Pluto pre-1930 because it was very, very highly subconscious. Highly subconscious. And I've looked back, and I'll do more research for the patron-only presentation and see when the last time, because I'm sure, I can't imagine there wasn't a time, but I have not been able to find a time in the last 200 years where Mars was at 29 degrees in exact opposition to Pluto as it was ingressing into the next sign. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. I've seen oppositions at 0 degrees a couple of times in the last 100 years, but I have not seen the opposition at 29 degrees, which is pretty wild. So it's a little bit crazy. And this is going to impact Trump. This is going to impact Trump in a really big way, especially this week. And I think there's going to be some really big news that comes out on end of the, late, in time for the evening news, on the 30th or early morning on the 31st. And I think there's going to be a bunch of things happen, like big events. These are big historical events, just like I talked about in the headline. We could see something happen with Biden. Like I talked about before, that full moon in July was a preview of this week. It was a preview of the 30th, 31st, 1st, and 2nd. There's a lot of energy. Now, I think this could be blowing through so that we end up with a female president. And not just a female president, but a female president who is a person of color, who is a Black woman, who is a South Asian. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. Because it's blowing white supremacy out of the water. But it's not the only event that's going to happen. There's stuff all over the world. We are not, the United States is not the world, as much as we like to think we are. There's a big world out there. And we may see violence, and I think we'll see some doozies. And I really do want to caution you for being in big public spaces, crowded spaces, like big events with lots of people. I'd like you to be very, very careful this whole week. But I can guarantee you Trump's not having a good time this week. It's not going to be good. Nor is it going to be good for people surrounding him. And you need to bring the panic level down if you can. Yeah, if you're from a marginalized community, I completely understand. But if you're a white person, go vote and then get involved in your local community. Push for it. You've got privilege. Use it. If you're from a marginalized community, including the alphabet mafia, and you live in a very conservative area, you have every right to be concerned. But do something to soothe yourself. Because fear is the mind killer. It just is. It just is. Alrighty. So speaking of fear, we're going to do the last segment talking about resistance, which is a form of fear. There's other forms of resistance. And that's from an article from the September Awake Space Astrology magazine. Remember, if you're a subscriber to the Awake Space Astrology magazine, that's a tier in the Patreon. Not only do you get the monthly issues, you can look at the back issues too. But if you can't do the monthly subscription, I completely understand. I'm going to put a very special discount code so you can grab for, a really special price. Okay. So make sure you check the show notes so you can grab your copy, because these articles give you really valuable information and tools to navigate any kind of crunchy energy, and will help you on your healing journeys, your journey to authenticity and connectivity with self, so you can be the most authentic version of yourself. Because you know what? That's how we kick patriarchy in the ass. Is we don't let ourselves become defined by an arbitrary set of standards that really leads to no sustainability. Alrighty, let's do some Patreon shout outs, and then we will do the last segment. All right, you heard the music. You know what time it is. Without you, there is no podcast. Thank you to Tracy, Jeanette, Rochelle, Bree, Andrea, Patricia, Jenna, Anna, Kayla, Magda, Fran, Alicia, Holly, Nicaea, Stephanie, Heather Weather, Denise, Bill, Bibi, Jen, Tammy, Lisa, Karen, Mackenzie, Mel, Louisa, Michelle, Midas, Belinda, Kim, Jacqueline, Luca, Mandy, Sandra, Barbara, Christina, Melanie, Kate, May, Cindy, Sarah, Robin, T-Bug B, Coco, City, Aaron, Jenny, Emerson, Andrea, Ellen, Sonia, Wanda, Dana, and Elise. Thank you guys for being patrons. Oh gosh, I'm really actually enjoying that people can leave comments on Spotify. And there's so many people thanking you, you patrons. So let's take a look at the comments. Let's see. I've got more. Drew Davis from the Pressure Rising Mini Moon Comet and Eclipse episode. That was a fun episode to make. He's Drew said, thank you, patron subscribers. Mel says, thank you, Laurie, and thank you to your Patreon. Let's see. Oh, so many good ones. From Cosmic Currents, the full moon in Pisces. I always listen to the episodes several times. You pack so much information in and you teach so clearly. Your delivery makes me laugh as you have a very similar sense of humor. Awesome. Thank you for your hard work. Oh, thank you. I appreciate each one and every one of you. And it's my passion and my pleasure to give you good information you can take action with every single day. Let's see. An anonymous thank you because it was very informative. Another thank you to the patrons. Alrighty. Here we are. So thank you, everybody. And make sure if you like to leave comments, you can thank a patron too. Especially, and you can do that on YouTube. I'll start checking YouTube now that everybody can see the episodes because there's 5,000 subscribers, which is crazy. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I should put stuff on there, huh? Speaking of, if you're trying to learn astrology and you're trying to figure out the charts, stop struggling. Just go to my YouTube channel and go to the beginning astrology tutorials. I give you very foundational, very legitimate walkthroughs on how to understand astrology, real astrology, not pop astrology, not content creators talking about astrology, but astrology as learned by astrologers for centuries. Okay, so this is the real deal astrology. All right. Let's get to talking about resistance, how to identify it, and what to do about it. Okay, I lied. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think is going to happen to Trump because his astrology kind of sucks between now and the end of November. It is not good. I don't know who could claim he has good transits because he does not. He just does not. Classical astrology. It isn't my preference. He does not have good transits. Okay. Now Biden's strained as well. Okay. And what happened? Biden stepped down with that full moon. So since the full moon was the preview, there could be something up on deck for Biden. Because, you know, we've got, this is Mars at 29 degrees Cancer is not a small thing. But on the 30th, we have it at 28 degrees, right? And it will be squared by the moon, which will also be squaring off with Pluto. And also on the 30th into the early morning of the 31st. And it's pretty serious stuff. This is afflicting Trump's Venus. This is afflicting Trump's Venus, and it's afflicting him, I think, from his second house, but it might be his third house. Let me take a look at his chart real quick. Because it's right around, like, we're going to find out it's not just sketchy financial deals. This is stuff that he loses bigly. Yes, using his favorite words. Because he has so many great words. The stable genius that he is. That is not an astrological analysis. That is my dislike of him. And again, I'm going to tell you, it would do you no good for me to let my bias get in the way. At all. I just want to take a look, and I'll talk a little bit about this in the patron only podcast, which will be different than the Mars-Pluto opposition stuff I do. So I'm just looking. Yeah. So when I look at his chart, his third house is at 21 degrees. So around 9 p.m. Eastern is when the moon will move into his third house. And Mars is in his 11th. He may be inciting violence that day. But I do believe there's information being leaked out because his Venus is at 25 degrees. Mars is in a separating conjunction to that. It's still very highly active. It's being activated by the moon. And that Pluto opposition is there. It's not a great time for him. I know there are some astrologers who will say, well, it's on the separation. I don't think being on the separation is enough, to give him any grace, any leeway, because his consciousness isn't steady. He's all over the place. If you heard the Joe Rogan interview. So, I mean, it hasn't been steady in a long time, which is age, health. And honestly, I'm going to say the same thing I said about Biden, elder abuse, pure and simple. So I think he's in over his head. And I think there's information that's going to come out that's going to be more than damning. I don't think it's the groping of the little girl. I wish people cared that much. They don't. They're not going to care about that type of stuff out of him. Because they're just as icky as he is. But this will be something they will care about. And I've told you, he will be continuing to lose allies. November is not a good month for him at all either. And I'll talk about that next week. But because next week's podcast comes out right before Election Day. Sheesh. Like, fine. I may have to do like a special episode. We'll find out. We'll see what happens. Let me take a look at Biden's chart really quick before we get to talking about resistance. And again, I'll do a visual walkthrough for patrons. I know some of you had a hard time accessing that on Patreon, and I'm going to tell you to restart your app or get a hold of Patreon if you had a hard time accessing that video, because you should have been able to access it. It was set for all paying patrons, and they updated the they updated Patreon, and it could just be a glitch. I'll try something else to get that up there. But yeah, the more of you who contact the Patreon support, because I can't help you with technical issues. I'm not in charge of the code of what's going on there. So when I look at Biden, I don't think he's as impacted too much. And you know what's really funny is he's always going to come out on top of Trump because his Jupiter is on top of Trump's Venus. Like, he can steal, and I don't mean in an illegal way, but he's able to kind of sit on top of Trump pretty well. The only thing kind of being afflicted is Biden's Jupiter, which isn't personal per se, other than maybe a family issue. But I think Biden may make an announcement in regards to Trump. There may be something coming out of the White House. But I will tell you, November 15th is not a good day for Biden. At all. Biden is under an immense amount of strain. I mean, it could be a health crisis. Like I said, I don't think he's necessarily going to die. He might, because he is old, and that happens. But I think there's certainly a health crisis with the full moon in November. I think Biden has had very bad health issues. I think Trump has too. And we could see a health issue with Trump this weekend not weekend, but the 30th, 31st, 1st. Biden's health crisis, I think, comes in November. And I think it comes with that full moon. And I think Trump has some really big legal issues. And I'm not talking lawsuits. I'm talking arrest or indictments more. It's not going to be a happy camper. He does not become president. And I will stand on that prediction. I don't care what psychic says what. I don't care what tarot reader says what. I don't care what some newscaster says. I don't care what some influencer says. This is my prediction, and I will stand on that. Okay. I just see absolutely no pathway. But likewise, I am unconvinced that Biden makes it through the rest of this term in one piece. I don't think he dies necessarily, but I do think this has been a huge strain on him. Huge strain. So I think we've got a very interesting time through November. He's not in great shape at all. I want to see his solar return one more time. I know I've talked about it before, but I don't remember. I look at too many charts. But I'm really concerned about Biden for November. Trump's not going to have a good day either. It's actually that full moon just really screws with him. And again, I'll run through this chart visually for patrons. So let's take a look. First house. So Biden has his solar return on the 20th. It's funny. It's like retirement. It's, I'm not necessarily, yeah, I do see there's potential issues with the brain. This could be like a stroke, TIA, neurological matter. Very much in that realm. But he gets to be creative. So yeah, I think he potentially makes it through 2025. Potentially. So, but I don't know that he makes it through the presidency. So it may be that he needs to step down as president because he's whooped. He's tired. He needs to go be grandpa. There's something going on there that is, and it could be that there's enough damning evidence against Trump coming out that Biden is willing to let go of the reins. And that could be it. Because he's holding on and doing public service, So, all right. Let's talk about resistance and how you can manage through the rest of this week. Because it is a shit show. It is intense. But it's not just you. The whole world is feeling it. We're all feeling the energy. Okay? It's not just you. And it's really important that you remember that, yes, it is your experience, but everybody else is also having their experience. And the more you think yours is the worst that is possible, the harder you're making your life. And I would really love you to ease up to make your life a little bit better. I'm not diminishing your experience. I'm not invalidating your feelings. But I am telling you from life experience, if you can turn your attention just a little bit to ease, to grace, to flow, and just be like, okay, that didn't work. I'm a little disappointed. I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to go take a nap. I might go take a shower. I might go eat a whole thing of brownies or cookies. Well, maybe I'll go take a run. Maybe I'll go throw darts at a dartboard, whatever. And then I'll look for another way. Not necessarily to get to the same place, but what else has my interest? Okay. So All right, let's get to resistance. So every month in the Awake Space Astrology magazine, I write an article called The Work, because we all get told you have to do the work, but nobody ever says what the work is. I remember how frustrated I used to be by that. Pardon my neurospicy brain, but when you say you got to do the work, I'd be like, well, what's the work? And they'd be like, well, you got to know what the work is. And I'm like, how do you know what the work is? And nobody would tell me because nobody really knew. Well, you haven't done the work. Well, what is the work? How do you do the work if you don't know it's like breaking rules you don't even know exist, right? Right? You're with me? I bet. And I was really tired of self-help books early on in my journey. I remember I found one called If You Meet the Buddha on the Road, Kill Him. And it was written by the same author that wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Mechanics. And I poured myself into this book and this was around the same time that I found astrology, or astrology found me. But I was reading this stupid book, and I was just looking for the answer, because why was my life falling apart? I had done absolutely everything I was supposed to do. I had followed the rules. I was an overachiever. I'd done it all. I checked off all the boxes. Why was life falling apart besides a Pluto transit and a Saturn transit? It was a time, I tell you. And I got to the end of the book. And at the end of the book, I said, and after all the answers are within. You've got them inside of you. And I was livid. I threw the book clear across my living room, and it smashed into a wall. I was so angry and so frustrated. If the answers were inside of me, how the hell am I in this situation? What a bogus, stupid thing to say. The answers are within. Well, if I knew what they were, I wouldn't have read the stupid book. That's why I always tell new coaches or people I train as astrologers, don't say the answers are within, because if somebody wouldn't be coming to you if they knew that the answers were within. That's just going to piss them off. What I like to show is that, yes, you do have the answers within, and here they are. Here's your specific blueprint. Okay. So when I tell you I've walked this walk, I've probably been right where you are. And some days I still am, because we never get it perfect. This idea that a spiritual teacher needs to be some kind of paragon of virtue is part of patriarchy. There are those who are better and those who are lesser. There are those who are blessed and those who are damned. That's all a control mechanism. That's to keep people small. That's to keep people off balance. That's to keep people in line with a controlling order versus in control of themselves. And I can tell you, the more whole and complete you are inside of yourself, the more sufficient you are to yourself, the more you know how to co-create with other people, and the less need for societal control there will be. Because, and I'm not talking about Shangri-La, I'm not talking about utopia, I'm not talking about unity consciousness. It's just the more self-aware you are, the more you are not seeking other people to conform to your ideology because you're solid in your own, the easier it is to work with other people, right? So, the work, and this is from the September issue of the Awake Space Astrology magazine. I've got a fancy discount code. I tried to do more than a 50% discount because I get generous that way, but the system won't let me, and this is done through the Patreon shop. And it's probably because of fees and things like that, because they have fees, I have fees. The thing you want to remember is to purchase it off a web browser and not through the Patreon app on the Apple. Okay, so using an iOS device, you're going to pay the Apple Store surcharge. There's nothing Patreon can do about that. So The work, a series of monthly essays, Training Mercury, How to Identify and Manage Resistance Patterns by Laurie Rivers. What we resist persists. C.G. Jung. Have you ever set a New Year's resolution or set an intention, then to your dismay had a backlash of resistance? Think of all the times we try to diet to lose weight, or start an exercise regime, or swear we'll get more organized, only to find that we quickly reach for the donut, find a reason not to hit the gym, or forget to pick up the planner that we bought. We can claim all sorts of reasons, busy brains, busy lives, or something darker from our past as to why we don't follow through with the things that make us healthier, more satisfied, or less stressed out. Regardless of the moniker of the reason, be it a diagnosis of some kind of disorder or we're simply not good at following through, what is up on deck is resistance. Resistance is not always a conscious decision or rebellion. In fact, most of the time it is subconscious and can reside within the very cells of our body. Understanding what resistance is, which includes emotional, psychological, and physical experiences, can liberate us from the patterns that hold us back from living more deliberately and expressing ourselves more authentically. If it's in our cells, is there no hope for change? Are we doomed to have family patterns consistently expressed or old habits never be broken? Are we merely at the mercy of our biological, psychological, and emotional patterns? There is always hope, and there is always the potential to express ourselves more deliberately. That's the good news. The bad news is, if there's any, is that it's not a quick fix. It takes time and commitment to make the changes we want to see in ourselves and how we want to live in the world. In order to release resistance and build new pathways for responding to the world and circumstances, the first step is to identify the pattern. As we say in the modern mystery school, the power is in the noticing. The perfection is in the correction. Identifying resistance patterns. The first thing to understand about resistance patterns is that absolutely every single human being has these patterns. There isn't one person who is free of resistance, because that is a natural part of being physical on this planet. Having resistance patterns is not an excuse to self-deprecate or to batter yourself with feelings of unworthiness. You are not alone in having these patterns. The second thing to understand is that all human beings are capable of identifying resistance patterns and then releasing resistance. It's part of our physical makeup. We are designed to create new patterns and pathways. Whether we're willing to release resistance is not another matter. The most important thing to remember is having resistance to situations, change, emotional encounters, success or failure, or positive or negative situations is something all humans share, and it's no reason to condemn yourself. Resistance builds strength. Just like when we use our own body weight to do resistance exercises to build strength, so too do our internal resistance patterns build strength. Once we can identify and release those patterns, we can use the muscles we've built over a lifetime of resisting things to move us forward, or to allow us to be authentic as the foundation for our new pathways. So appreciate what you've got. We have to work with our energy and personal makeup, fighting against it as well, resisting our nature. One of the ways we can identify resistance patterns is through the language we use on a daily basis. This helps clue us in on how we're blocking progress, remaining stuck in a rut, repeating relationship patterns, or self-sabotaging ourselves. Word patterns help us identify where we are on the emotional tonal scale. Then we are more able to release and move upwards on the consciousness ladder to improve our general quality of life. Ways resistance manifests. Physical. Tension, stiff muscles, joint pain, muscle pain, numbness, sharp stabbing pains, aches, burning, itching, rashes, mucus buildup, mucus drainage, lymph blockage, nervous tics, licking lips, biting nails, folding arms or legs, clenching hands, putting hands over eyes, muscle spasms, closing eyes, furrowing brows, silence, yelling, screaming, crying, moaning, guttural sounds, vomiting, nausea, headache, dizziness, coughing, lethargy, holding breath, and the list can really go on. Emotional, frustration, anger, isolation, delusions, shutting down, walking away, staying in bed, dissociation, false positivity, anxiety, and depression, and probably many more. Often, when we are diagnosed with emotional or psychological issues, what isn't taken into account is the situational nature of our life. If we're in a job we hate and a relationship that is unfulfilling, resisting that in the form of depression is a natural physical response to the feeling that we have no way out. When we have experienced trauma as small children or in our teens and then have anticipatory anxiety over events, that is to be expected. It's our body trying to keep us safe. These are natural responses. They are not, however, always logical to the present moment. Believing we have no power or agency, or not allowing ourselves to assess the present moment with clarity, can diminish our ability to live a rich, rewarding life. We may resist positive situations too and self-sabotage because of deeply internalized limiting beliefs. Let's say we had a hypercritical parent whose approval was something we were desperate to receive, but we never got the "I'm proud of you" we sought. As we go along through life into our adult years, we may not accept compliments or praise from others because we were so focused on what we needed and didn't get from our parent. We might even put ourselves into situations that make it hard for us to succeed, or we don't appreciate the success we do attain. Identifying resistance. We don't have to go too deep into analysis to figure out why we have resistance, or even what it is we're resisting in order to release resistance. Again, by simply observing where we're at and how we're resisting, we have the power to identify. Then we can begin to make small, incremental corrections. The power is in the noticing. The perfection is in the correction. Long before the book The Body Keeps the Scores was written, Dr. John W. Ray created an interdisciplinary healing modality called body electronics or point holding. I discovered the use of this healing modality through my early work with Thomas C. Chavez, who wrote a comprehensive book on the matter entitled Body Electronics: Vital Steps for Physical Regeneration. Chavez studied directly under Dr. John W. Ray and was a wealth of information on healing both physically and emotionally. One of the foundations of understanding how our body holds on to patterns is understanding what is often referred to as the emotional tonal scale. A quick version explains how we experience reality depending on where we are on the scale. Enthusiasm is when we're completely connected with the all that is, and that's usually our peak experiences. But we drop from that and we can experience pain, like ow, and that might result in dropping into anger, and then grief, fear, apathy, and unconsciousness. The emotional tonal scale. It's important to note that much like I describe consciousness in terms of instinctual, transactional, social cultural programming, and transcended, reconstructed spectrum, understand that we experience all of the states in the tonal scale. We may experience enthusiasm an absolute lack of resistance when we hold a kitten or see a beautiful flower or eat our favorite treat. At the same time, we can be unconscious in our awareness of some irritant, allergy to cats, that starts to harsh the buzz of our emotional high in seeing that cute little fur ball. Enthusiasm isn't just a happy state. Its literal definition means to be infused with God, or the all that is, or creation, or life. You can substitute the word universe, source, or all that is if you don't use the word God. Enthusiasm can be summed up as states of acceptance, love, grace, awe, joy, peace, connection, and flow. It's not always unbridled hyper happiness. We can attain this state more often and more deliberately when we learn how to release our resistance patterns. Remember, the power is in the noticing. The perfection is in the correction. Social cultural resistance to states that clue us in. Our society has learned to fear, if not outright reject, what we see as negative emotions or states of consciousness. We do almost anything to avoid pain, fear, and grief, which still exist even in our avoidance. But avoiding also leads to apathy and unconsciousness. Apathy isn't a lack of caring. It is the belief you have no power. By resisting the more intense experiences of emotional pain, emotional rage, or anger, fear, and grief, we put ourselves in a position of feeling powerless and unable to navigate a world that is filled with experiences. By judging the intense feelings, we rob ourselves of the ability to make the necessary changes to help us reach enthusiasm more often. Identifying resistance. Yes, we need to be able to feel pain to release it and find enthusiasm. When we stay stuck because we're telling the same story over and over, maybe it's the trauma story, or maybe it's how our relationships fail, or maybe it's because we've had some imposed physical limitations due to accidents or disease, we are holding ourselves back from living more fully. Our society has given a lot of social capital to those with the trauma story. It seems to make sense of our lives, why we're unable to do X or have Y, and people can have more sympathy than when we don't repeat those stories. However, we actually have the power to overcome the emotional and psychological impacts of the physical events. Back in the 1970s, when Dr. John W. Ray was assembling body electronics, the concept of neuroplasticity hadn't been proven by science. In fact, the concept of neuroplasticity is relatively new as of the past 2 decades. However, in his research and practice, he saw it happen again and again. When a person could experience the pain and find acceptance, he called it love, but that's a loaded word. They could transmute the pain and it dissipated or disappeared and transmuted alchemically into some kind of expression of enthusiasm, and saw physical healing as well. I myself have experienced this many times since my introduction to body electronics back in 1999. To let go of the story, to dive into the feeling most wanted to avoid, to experience it with as little judgment as possible, is to neutralize the toxins created by stress hormones in the body. We don't have to go that deep here, and I do not recommend going that deep on your own. Body electronics is something practiced with trained facilitators. Yet on an individual level, we can very much notice our patterns and make a small change to get great results. Without taking the deep dive into the why and what of how our resistance takes shape, we can identify resistance through observing our word patterns or even our inner monologue, if we're lucky enough to have one. Caveat: It's important to focus solely on yourself and not other people. Once you begin the journey of identification, it's tempting to point out other people's resistance patterns. That's fine if they ask you to, but unsolicited noticing is a form of resistance in itself. We don't need to shape other people's realities, just our own. The more we release resistance inside ourselves and gain more mastery of our consciousness, the more our world will shift around us without having to drag other people on the journey. For a less cerebral approach to releasing resistance, looking at the work of Abraham Hicks as facilitated by Esther and Jerry Hicks can be very useful. In their book, Ask and It Is Given, there is a list of emotional states and a series of corresponding exercises that help you move up and out of various vibrational, emotional, and conscious states. After more than 20 years of participating and leading point-holding sessions, here are some of the most common word patterns I have observed through active practice. Unconscious. There isn't much verbal output when it comes to unconsciousness. It can, however, be distractedness, inability to hear the words that are being spoken, or quite literally falling asleep. If you've ever received good news and had a hard time receiving the information and had someone have to repeat the words a few times before it sunk in, that is an unconscious resistance pattern. Likewise, if you've tried to have an important conversation and someone checked out, glazed over, or didn't hear you clearly, they could be resisting the information unconsciously or the interaction. Apathy. Apathy is often mistaken for a lack of care or concern, when in reality it means we feel we have no power over the situation. It can be caused by a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. It can be a state induced by repetitive trauma, which includes being forced to behave in socially acceptable ways in school, sitting at desks for long hours, and having no route to self-expression. As much as society does need rules and ways of engaging in large groups, early forced assimilation to certain behaviors robs us of feeling our agency. Most of us experience apathy at some point in our life where we neither feel nor see any opportunity to act that makes any sort of difference. Word patterns. I don't know. I can't. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. Can't take it anymore. I give up. I'm done. Fuck it. Screw it. Pushing against the state of apathy will strengthen it. So trying to change your thoughts from I don't know to I do know isn't going to produce the results you want in the moment. Instead of trying to manipulate your thoughts, be with the feeling of I don't know or I'm tired. Pay attention to where that is that you feel in your body. Are your arms heavy? Are you bone weary everywhere? Are you feeling a lump in your throat? Remember, the power is in the noticing. Once you notice it, then breathe into it gently and witness it. I see that I don't know. I see that I'm tired. It's okay not to know. It's okay to be tired. Avoid telling a story around the not knowing or the being tired. You don't need to defend or excuse your feeling. Just bear witness to your feelings and accept the moment without seeing it as good or bad. It is what it is. Acknowledging the what isness helps you release that resistance, and within moments you may have an idea pop into your head or another thought that takes you forward. Grief. Grief is most commonly connected with the physical loss of a loved one. Yet we experience grief at many junctures in life. When we have significant changes to our day-to-day living, leaving one job to find another, moving from one home to another, children reaching milestones, heading off to college, retirement, getting married. All of those examples can provoke grief, because grief is how we process big changes in our lives. We can grieve our lost innocence. We can grieve a world event. We can grieve what might have been and wasn't. The problem isn't with grief itself. Grief is natural and a normal part of being a physical being on this planet. Repressed grief, however, is unhealthy and a form of resistance. If you're currently processing grief and not repressing it, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. However, living in a perpetual state of unresolved grief is devitalizing. Word patterns. What will I do? I'm empty inside. I can't make it on my own. What do I do now? What will become of me? I can't go on alone. I don't know what to do with my time. It doesn't feel real. I can't manage this. I'm so lonely. There's this empty space. How can I keep going? Once again, it's important to note the word pattern and feel into your body. Does your chest feel hollow? Is your stomach upset? Do you feel cold or numb? Notice the body's sensations and bear witness. My stomach is upset. That's it. That's all the statement you make. Don't fall into the temptation of telling the story. Bearing witness means acknowledging the moment and emotion without judging it. If you want a little extra help releasing, tell your something like, I accept that my body feels cold, numb, sore, and I feel alone right now. It is what it is. Notice the body's response. Don't force it. Don't try to make anything change or happen. Just accept the moment. Accepting doesn't mean condoning. And just adding a little word in here. It also doesn't devalue the loss. You're just removing the toxins in the body and freeing you up a little bit to have a little more ease. But it doesn't take away the love you have for what the situation is. Fear. Unanswered or processed fear can leave us feeling frozen, anxious, and can even appear to be something akin to anger. The original fear response was often warranted, but when not allowed to process, it grows as a resistance pattern. Fear as a resistance pattern can come across as arrogance or bluster. Think of the little hen that puffs up her feathers trying to fool a predator into thinking she's too big to eat. Humans do it too, and it can hold us back when we're not facing an actual threat. Word patterns or behaviors. Bragging or explaining expertise to gain validation. Walking out of a room or away from an uncomfortable conversation. When presented options that can move them forward or solve a problem. Yeah, but what if it doesn't help? They won't want me. I'm stuck. Nothing goes my way. I'm not qualified. I don't have what it takes. Right? I'm in a panic. Just stating it. I'm afraid. I'm scared. I'm panicked. My anxiety is killing me. All of those are the word patterns. Fear can express in many ways, from avoiding activities to feeling paralyzed and overwhelmed to rejecting opportunities. The unknown is scary. What if it doesn't work out? What if we end up alone? What if? It's absolutely okay to feel afraid, but as the saying goes, feel the fear and do it anyway. If you can witness yourself expressing a fear response, feel it in your body. Is your stomach upset? Are your bowels crampy? Do you break out into a cold sweat? Are you holding your breath? Does your chest feel tight? Do you want to run, walk away, or disappear? Once you identify what you're feeling and how you're feeling, take a few slow, deep breaths, remembering to exhale, and then acknowledge, I see me. I see my fear. Don't judge. Don't put yourself down for it. Don't make fun of yourself. Just witness yourself and accept yourself as you are in the moment. Oh, guys, it's late and I have to edit this to get this out to you. You can find the rest of this article. I didn't want to skip fear There's like 3 pages left of the article, but my eyes are starting to run out of time. We kind of put it together, and I give you the enthusiasm and the day-to-day practice. And in that article, every single month, I'm writing articles to equip you with ways to do the work. And we'll have a compendium of these articles in about 12 months. So what I'm going to write about in November, don't you want to know? I'll let you know next week. The magazine comes out the first week of the month, every single month. We have the new moon. Intention setting guides in there. And November is a very interesting month. We have a new moon on the 1st and on the 30th. So November's a new moon sandwich with a really explosive full moon. So I think November's kind of crazy. But to get your new moon intention setting guide for November, remember it's in the October issue. So all of you who get the magazine, remember it's in the October, so you can set those intentions and get moving. It's a big one. Scorpio new moon, and it's an interesting one. So, and that happens on November 1st, and we'll have Mars still in opposition to Pluto. So it's a great time to blow through the blocks, let go of the fear, acknowledge it. It's okay to be like, okay, I see my fear. It is what it is. I'm feeling it in my gut. Okay, my gut's tense. I can accept that. That fear served me at one point. Don't say, oh, it's not serving me now. Don't do that. Just, it is what it is. Makes you the most powerful person in the world. I see it. There we go. Remember, acceptance does not mean you're condoning something. You're not in agreement with it. You're not saying, oh, well, it's good. You're just saying, I can see it, because you become deliberate in your consciousness. All right? It's a big week. If you're a patron, make sure you're coming into the chats. Okay? Because you don't need to go through this alone. That's what we've got for this week. Next week's election week. I got you, booze. I think we're going to have like 2 episodes. I'll do like pre-election day episode and post-election day episode where I get to do some I told you so. So probably the biggest I told you so's will come in December. Make sure you check the show notes for your special discount for the September magazine, where you get the resistance article, so you can keep that on hand.